Welcome to the Intentional Household Podcast. I am Laura Wilson. I am so excited for today's conversation. It is with Courtney Hobbs, and this conversation really came out of curiosity for myself. I met Courtney earlier this year at an event where she shared with me her business, Mother Telling, which really had me thinking about how I practice storytelling or how I don't practice it within my household. It led me to ask the question, what would it look like to bring more meaning, connection, and reflection to our household through storytelling? So excited to get into this episode. Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
To kick things off, can you share a little bit about what got you into storytelling in the first place, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how much time do we have? But no, I'm just kidding. I feel like for me, storytelling has been ingrained in me forever. I was a dancer growing up. Then I was involved in theater, musical theater specifically, but theater in general. I took English and drama for my degrees to become an English and drama teacher, a high school teacher. And those two courses, and then I ended up teaching dance as well, are all rooted in storytelling. Like that's what we focus on. That's what I was teaching about with my students. And so it's always just been this part of my life that's thread through. And so I was first introduced to the storytelling style that I teach probably about 15 years ago. I started listening to a podcast from the Moth Storytelling, which is a US-based company. And I just fell in love with the Moth style storytelling, which is true stories as remembered by the speaker. And when my daughter was born, she is 7.5 now. When she was born, she came early, a whole month early. And we spent some time in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. And I sat with her in this dark cubicle that you're in and doing the little kangaroo care, the skin to skin. And I had this vision of bringing moms together to share true stories of motherhood on stage, similar to the Moth style. And it took me 5.5 years to bring it to life as the business it is now. But that's when the vision first came to me. And I thought, this needs to be just for moms. Like I want to do this to bring moms together. So that's the short version.
It's so funny because you had that vision when you had your baby. And then it's kind of the timing with it was like, I have this vision. I want to bring this to life. But you're also like, I'm a new mom, though. I'm so busy right now. So I can imagine why it took some time to really roll out.
Absolutely. And I had started a personal training business. So I was in the transition phase of leaving my teaching career. And I just started a personal training business. And I was planning to work through that on my maternity leave and grow that business, which I did. And so it also felt like an abandoning of, but this is the transition business I've started. It was multi-layered, but yes, absolutely. So,
yeah. It's interesting how you say that storytelling has always been a part of your life, because for myself growing up, storytelling wasn't at all common practice for us. I don't recall hearing a lot of stories from my parents about their lives. And like, we certainly didn't sit around telling stories. So why do you think, though, storytelling is such an effective tool for intentional living and parenting?
okay, I'm going to agree with you first in that I didn't necessarily grow up with my parents also sharing stories with me, and watching my mother-in-law and the storytelling within her community and her family. I'm like, oh, she remembers so much. She tells so many stories of her childhood and my husband's childhood. And I just love that. And I missed that as a kid too. Like as much as I loved stories and English and drama and theater and putting on stories, personal stories weren't actually part of my life either, which is a whole other layer of mother telling, in that I know that I'm missing out on certain aspects of my history that I would love to know through the stories of my parents, my aunts, my uncles, that kind of thing. So I can relate to you on that. And I guess as I watch my mother-in-law share these stories with my children, I'm in awe and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to make sure I'm sharing stories.
That's the exact same experience for me. Because in my husband's family, they love to sit around and tell stories. That's the thing that they do. Every time we see them, they're all sitting around telling stories. And they're telling stories that at this point I have heard many times. And I've said to Alex, like, I've heard this story. And he's like, but that's not the point. We like to sit around and relive these stories. And I'm like, okay, that's right. But I can very much see how it brings people together and they're connected and they're reflecting. And it's such a wonderful, positive experience for everyone involved and for myself as well, even though I wasn't a part of the stories. But now it's like I could tell the stories very well. And I didn't live it.
I feel the same. And I think like my kids will ask me, Mommy, tell me a story. And I'm like, do you want a princess story, like a once upon a time style story? Or do you want a story about Mommy and my life? It's always, I want Mommy, I want a story about you and your life. And what's been helpful is as I've been mining my memories and digging through my stories, like I have more content for them. Like when they ask me a story, I'm like, oh yeah, I just thought of this, or it helps me remember. Like you said, or your husband said, like, it's not the point. It isn't. It's just getting it out there and sharing that, connecting in that way. That's one of my big things is storytelling connects us. It's how we remember each other. It's how we stay connected or feel connected and have those me too moments. Like, oh, I've done that too, or I can relate to that. And I think that's really important, especially for our kids with us as parents. I think it's so important for them to feel like they can connect with us.
100%. And I will say that since meeting you and learning about mother telling and trying to be more conscious at storytelling about myself, I've been doing it more with my kids and I can see how they light up and they want to hear more stories about whether it's about themselves or myself or my family, like my sisters, my parents, their grandparents. They love hearing it. And that was just something I wasn't doing before. And it never really crossed my mind to. But now that I am, I can see the joy and the excitement and the connection that it brings.
I am so happy to hear that.
Okay, but I know you were going to say something else before I cut you off.
Well, I think the other part of your question that I was going to answer, the thing that's been helpful for me too in like parenting itself is now that I look for these story-worthy moments or these things happening in our day-to-day life, I am so much more present. So like when I collect the daily moments is what I call them, your moments in the day that are story-worthy, it's like I'm more aware of what's happening. And if I can share a story, once we were getting ready for a photo shoot and I had, the outfits picked out. We were all going to match. It's going to be great. The shoes, their little sandals were sitting out. And we're getting ready to put our shoes on. I come around the corner and their shoes have been Sharpied. They were like pink, rose gold, and they had now blue, bright blue and black Sharpie on them. And I remember being very overcome with a lot of anger and frustration. But I remember laughing and being like, this is going to be a story one day. This is a story-worthy moment right now. I'm just going to laugh it off. It's going to be fine. And it really diffused my anger. Now that doesn't work in every situation, but for this one in particular, like it's something that sticks with me now. And it really changed the dynamic of how I reacted in that situation. And I'm so grateful for that. And there are other things that happen that I'm like, this is a good story one day. Like take a couple breaths. We're okay. Just roll with it.
I can completely see that. And I'm almost seeing when we have some hiccups along the way, I think, you know what? It makes for a great story.
Yeah. Like no one was hurt. The grass was tall enough. You could barely even see their sandals. It was fine.
Now, I will say I have always felt like I am not a great storyteller because, again, it's very new to me, right? I'm just kind of getting started. So for those who feel the same way, like they're not good at storytelling, they don't really know how to tell a good story, what would your advice be for them to start?
I mean, first is you just need to practice. The more stories you start to tell, the better you're going to get at telling them. That would be first. Second, depending on your audience, like your children don't care if you're telling the story in a good way. Like they just want the information. They just want to know.
Yeah.
They don't care if you kind of flip flop all over. They're excited to hear. So I think those are like the two things. Just your stories are worth sharing, share them. And the more you share, the easier it'll get. There are definitely storytelling techniques and tips and tricks that I teach in my program and with my storytellers. I think my biggest one, I guess if I can impart just a small bit of wisdom, is showing versus telling. And what I mean by that is bring your audience into your story. So explain how the emotion is showing up in your body. So instead of saying, I was just really nervous, and especially for kids, they don't always understand all these emotions, all these words. What that meant, like I had butterflies in my tummy. My tummy was doing loop-de-loops and I felt so sick, like I was going to throw up because I was so nervous. Like explain it. Every good story or people want to listen or lean in to listen is when you can bring them into that moment. And just that little tweak will help anybody tell a better story, is if you can show them rather than just telling them, I was nervous. Like, what does nerves look like or feel like in your body, and explain that.
Oh, I love that. So I want to get into your podcast, because you have a podcast that you restarted, let's just say, right?
Yep.
And it's called Own Your Story, which I love, and I have listened to it, and that is full of tips and tricks.
That is my goal with the podcast, is to give people these the episodes that I do by myself I try to keep them under 10 minutes. It kind of depends. Sometimes I'll share a story in the podcast episode, so it'll be a bit longer, but I try to just give these little tips to help you grow your storytelling skills, to improve both storytelling or any public speaking you do. So giving podcast interviews, or if you have to give a speech at a wedding or a eulogy or anything like that. There's lots of different places, even telling stories in interviews, which I realize this is a podcast, but like say you're going for a job. It's great to have a story or two that makes you more memorable. It helps you connect. So that's my goal, just to help people work on their storytelling in general with like bite-sized, short, actionable tips.
Yes. I love how they are quick, short, easy. I can finish an episode and then I can start implementing those tips that you have. I know that one of the things you said in it is that a lot of people, they might not tell stories, or like maybe you felt this way. I'm pretty sure you said this, that like, who cares about your story? Well, like, is my story even worthy of sharing? And I think that is what held me back. Like, you know, who cares that I did this? Everyone has their own experiences, and I just don't want to bore someone with this story. But I know if I think about it and I look at the flip side, I love hearing people's stories, and that is a way for us to connect. And so that really inspired me, because I'm kind of like, okay, you know what? People do like listening to the stories. And so I will start telling more as a way for people to feel better connected to me.
Yes. Good. Yay. That is exactly what I want to hear, because
you know, like I was just going to say, my husband, he loves to tell stories all the time. And we would be, you know, like in meetings or an appointment, and he would tell stories, and I would always kind of kick him and be like, people don't want to hear your stories. But now, I mean, of course, there's a time and a place, but I'm starting to appreciate the storytelling much more than I ever have.
Well, and I will say, and this is what I tell people, like we can all tell stories. We're all natural storytellers. It's in our DNA, and we've been doing it for millennia, you know, since we could talk, communicate, whatever. But how we tell our story can be more engaging, right? Like you can have a storyteller and they tell lots of stories and they're great, but they like veer over here and then they come back and then they go over here and off on tangents, and it can just be,
that's him.
Yeah, which is like awesome. But depending on where you're trying to tell your story, like sometimes at the dinner table, that's okay. But that is one of the things I teach with my students, clients. I'm like, can it pass the dinner table test and be engaging the whole time? Like, how do you tell a story so that people lean in and listen? And the tip I just gave you, among other ones, there's definitely ways to improve your storytelling so that you don't lose your audience, even if it is at the dinner table.
Exactly. So, let's just say tonight, if I was going to start practicing anything at the dinner table, like what would you give me any suggestions on how to start tonight with my family?
I just put out this hook guide, like to hook people in. So to kind of a good first line for your story. What do people want to hear? A fun one, I guess, for just around the dinner table would be guess what happened to me today, or guess who I saw today, or that would be a fun, because I know when my kids say that to me, I'm like, what happened? We all just, I want to guess, I want to know. And then you can lead into your story, just like hooking them in that way, or you'll never guess, that kind of thing. I think it's really fun. This is not totally answering your question, but I definitely want to impart this. And this is a podcast episode coming out, so you'll be able to listen to it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But there's a fun game that I play with clients and with my kids, and it's called First, Last, Best, Worst. And this is a fun game to mine your memories, to remember things, and to bring up stories. And you can do this, you could just do this at the dinner table. And so essentially you have a topic. So one thing, so that could be camp. We're in summer when we're recording right now. My kids are at camp. And so then you have to tell what your first camp experience was like, last camp experience, best and worst. And now you could do like day camps. That's where my kids are, but you could also talk about camping or whatever. And it's funny what comes up, because things that you haven't even remembered. Like if I were to sit here and think, what was the last camp I went to? And I think it was a performing arts camp. It was 3 weeks long. There would be stuff that would come from that. So not necessarily like just delivering a story at the table, but like bringing it turns into storytelling, because then people want to know more about like, what was the first camp, or what was your worst camp experience, mommy, or that, and finding out from them too, like their last camp was obviously what they just went to today,
I love that, because it does force you to reflect and really think about your own experiences that you've had, because I certainly haven't thought about my own, in this case, camp experiences in a long time. And nor have I talked to my kids about it, or probably my husband. And so really to go back and just share some more information about my experiences, I'm sure they would love that. And then also it gives me a better understanding of my kids and how they feel about their camp experiences in this case.
It opens up so many doors for conversation. And I mean, you could do it if you're eating spaghetti and meatballs, like that could be your topic. Like, what's your first memory of spaghetti and meatballs? And they might not remember their first, but you may remember the first time you gave them spaghetti and meatballs, And then it just brings up, well, when you were trying all your first new foods, and then you always threw it on the floor and the dog and whatever, it could just spiral from there into a whole story. Just one kid, one spaghetti and meatballs experience,
That's right. Because we actually have a spaghetti memory in our household about it coming out of my son's nose. And we love to talk about that and laugh about it.
I love it. There's probably more of those, somewhere deep in your memories too. So that's cool.
Okay, let's talk about tools. I have your book. I brought it, the journal.
They're
They're
still
still
so
alive.
much. Yeah.
Because I want to talk about tools. So this is a great tool for capturing memories and writing it down in the book so that you can reflect and go back and revisit those experiences with either yourself or loved ones. Are there any other tools that you would recommend that could support us?
So yeah, absolutely. The book is awesome. I love how you had shared just the other day in your stories about being able to have the paper copy to look back and reflect and have your kids read as well. I think that that's so fun. The First, Last, Best, Worst game is also a great tool. It's just a get to know you tool, dig deeper into our memories, share stories tool. So those would be two of my favorite story collection tools, story finding tools, because sometimes I'll run into people and they'll say, I don't have any stories to share. Like, what would I even share? Why would I even share that? And that always breaks my heart. Yes. I'm like, trust me, you have so many stories and people want to hear them. And sometimes it's just a matter of finding the stories to then build the confidence to start sharing those stories, right? So those are my two best intro to storytelling tools. Beyond that, listening to stories would be another great tool. So I'm a big fan of The Moth, which is like I said, an organization out of the States, and they run more of a competition style. I don't do that. I just showcase women and I want them to share, connect, and celebrate all that it means to be a mom and all that it means to be standing in our truth and our power and owning our story. But theirs is more competitive based, and they have hundreds and thousands of stories available either on their podcast or their YouTube. And listening to other people tell stories, not that all of them are great, but they're pretty good. These people are competing, so they've really practiced and all of that. I think that that's a great tool too. If you're interested in becoming a better storyteller, you need to hear other stories. You need to immerse yourself in storytelling. So that would be great. And then my podcast, if I can do a little pitch there for you. And you have already talked about how I'm trying to give these small, tangible, actionable tips on how you can improve your storytelling. So I encourage you to listen there. But those would be, I don't want to overwhelm anybody with tools, but that's a good start. And then if you obviously, if you want to explore storytelling more, I work with people one-on-one or in my community container. My academy is what I call it. So
yes. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So this has been on my heart. Maybe I wait. Clearly now there's a theme here, but it had been on my heart for over a year. And I finally launched it back in June. And there are 22 women in this space right now who are immersed in storytelling for a whole bunch of different reasons, which is really awesome. So we get together once a week and I elaborate, coach on different creativity tools and techniques, different storytelling tools and techniques to just help their flow in their writing or their speaking, whatever they're working on. And then every second Friday, we do a biweekly co-working call. And it's awesome because we come together, we get down to business. I use the Pomodoro technique, which is 25-minute work period, 5-minute rest, 25 minutes. Anyway, you can look it up. But it's been really, really helpful to keep them accountable and keep them on track for their creative goals. And so one person is writing a whole book. Actually, 2 are working on books. 8 of them are co-authors in my upcoming Mother Telling co-author project, which is a new endeavor for me. I've written in a co-author project as a published author, but I've never led one. And so I'm excited to do that piece. So we've been working together on that. And then the rest have speaking goals. So they want to speak on more stages, or they want to do more podcasting. They want to deliver workshops online. I would say the majority are entrepreneurs to get their story out there, but then there's a lot that aren't, and they just want to be able to share and preserve their stories for themselves, for their family, for generations to come, which I think is so cool. And so right now we're having fun learning and exploring. And my goal, so every year I run a big event. I call it the Mother Telling Main Stage event. And I have women who are sharing stories of motherhood on stage. So often people think, oh, it's just mothers, but I've had a number of non-moms participate to share around that journey as well, because I think that's an important story too. I also had one storyteller shared a story about her grandmother. It wasn't necessarily about her journey as a mom. Anyway, but my goal is to also run some micro and smaller events to give people the opportunity to share more often. I'm also partnering with other events where they're looking for storytellers to speak on stage, to share their true, authentic stories. And I'm really excited. I have an event coming up in September I've partnered with, and there are 4 moms going on stage at this conference to share their birth stories. And I'm really excited about that partnership. So there's lots coming up. And then it's nice to have the women inside the academy that I know are trained and have worked through the storytelling, like the mother telling method, the process, and they're ready to speak on stage.
That sounds so amazing. And it definitely sounds like that would benefit me if I, muster up the courage to do that, because I just think it sounds like an extremely supportive environment for so many women just to get their story out there.
Absolutely. That's because it's my founding members. I'm looking for feedback from them all the time. And, let's try this. What is this like? And I just asked them on our last call, where are you at? How are you feeling? That again, the lessons are bite size. I don't want them to feel overwhelmed by everything. And they were so sweet. They were like, this is a safe space. I feel really safe here. So I'm going to share this. And I feel really safe and I'm going to share this. And it brought me to tears because I want it to be a safe space. If we're sharing personal stories, especially ones that have an element of trauma, of hardship, which a lot of stories do, it needs to be a safe space for us to find the confidence to be able to share. And I'm really excited about that aspect of the container because I don't know, that's what I wanted and that's what I'm trying to do. And for them to then give me that feedback is awesome.
Courtney, I have loved talking about this. This conversation really has been inspiring for me. I mean, of course, it was inspiring when you and I first met and I heard about or learned about what you were doing, but it's continuing to be inspirational for me as I further develop my storytelling in my family and household. So for those who want to learn more about you or any of the things that you've talked about, where can they find you?
Okay, first, Laura, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so glad we connected and I appreciate you cheering me on. So thank you. For me right now, primarily, my social media platform of choice is Instagram and my handle is I am Courtney Hobbs there. My website is courtneyhobbs.com. And my podcast would be, the best places. Which we talked about, Own Your Story. I do have a newsletter I put out once a week that's called A Delightful Distraction. And it's generally me sharing a story and some sort of tool that's helping me both in parenting, in storytelling, just in life in general. And so that would be to get on my email list would be another way.
I'm following your Instagram, your stories. I downloaded the Hook guide as well. I'm looking forward to reading that. So yeah, you're full of tips and tricks. And so if any listeners are interested, definitely check it out because there's a lot of wonderful content that you're providing. So thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for downloading all the things.
Thank you so much for listening to the Intentional Household podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Join us on Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest at Intentional Household, where we're sharing even more tips, tools, and resources to help your home run with more ease, intention, and joy. Until next time, here's to creating a household that supports the life you want to live.